Now, she's one of the most controversial and fearless women's rights campaigners in the world, and tonight she's fresh off the plane from a terrifying ordeal in New Zealand, where she experienced misogynistic violence from trans extremists. This is the moment Kellie-Jay Keen was doused in tomato juice and swept away from her own rally in shocking scenes of woke tyranny she feared could result in her death.
Okay, excuse me. Go, go, go.
Security.
Okay. Oh my God, thanks so much, yeah.
Just get us to a police station, it'll be fine.
Unbelievable. The person who doused Kellie-Jay with liquid has since been identified as a trans extremist who gave this chilling speech just hours after the attack, calling for Kellie-Jay to be covered in blood.
I dropped a liter of tomato juice because I want her to be full of blood, because that's what she's advocating for. She's advocating for our genocide.
Now, despite being wrongly condemned as both a transphobe and neo-Nazi supporter by the biased New Zealand media, Kellie-Jay has since won the backing of Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling, who condemned her grim treatment as repellent and urged fellow pro-women campaigners not to be silenced. I'm delighted to say Kellie-Jay joins me live now in the studio. So, look, this is such a difficult story for me because obviously I was born in New Zealand. I'm a dual citizen. But I know from harsh personal experience of the kind of woke tyranny that has spread through the country since the election of the now deposed former Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. I know that this is not how most New Zealanders feel, but the shocking thing is that no one in authority or in the media or in the political establishment was standing up for you.
No, it's really quite frightening. I really fear for the women, well, everybody actually in New Zealand with leadership like that and a media that is so gutless and dishonest, just like crazy lies and dishonesty from the media.
Can we deal with some of them? Because they have described you as both a radical transphobe and a neo-Nazi in the past week.
Yeah. It's clearly I'm neither of those things. I don't believe that men can be women in any way, shape or form. I don't believe that you can change your sex. I do believe women deserve rights, sex-based rights, and the same for men. And I do think we shouldn't sterilise kids. But the Nazi stuff came from a helpful politician in Australia who thought good research would be to read a Wikipedia entry. So, so that really whipped up such a terrible frenzy in New Zealand.
One of the things that's been so shocking to see, and it's what J.K. Rowling described as repellent, is that at these so-called protests, I mean, that's not really the right word for them, are they? It's sort of violent criminal activity, really. There are trans activists, men, physically beating up on women.
I know. I think they're terrorists because I think what they want to do is they want to instill fear and they want to intimidate for a political objective and to silence women. So I think it's fair to call them terrorists. I don't think that's too inflammatory. But the way that mob behaved, I genuinely did feel like I was going to be crushed to death, or if I got to the floor, I'd never get up. I just thought I would be stomped.
The footage was terrifying.
Yeah.
It was absolutely terrifying. Now, look, can I just clarify? Because obviously there was a big campaign to stop you entering the country. The immigration minister spoke out. The Prime Minister spoke out. Did you have any violent plans, or were you literally going to stand up on a platform and talk about the fact that you believe in biological sex.
Yeah, well, I was going to do that, but the main point of what I do is to enable ordinary women, so it would be local New Zealanders, to come and talk about what's happening to them in their own country. It's not for me to go and tell the world how to behave. It's for me to facilitate spaces for women, wherever they live, to come and talk about their own lives.
But is part of your goal by doing this to actually expose the trans lobby for what it is?
Yes.
Misogynistic, violent, and I would argue intolerant.
Oh, just like the epitome of bigotry, right? And fascistic, authoritarian behaviour. So, yes, that's a wonderful thing that we do. I've always said everything I do has this wonderful benefit of drawing out the poison. So when I put the billboard up back in 2018, I knew that there'd be some men really angry about the dictionary definition of the word woman, and they would do my work for me, and it just happens again and again.
This was the billboard adult human female that you put up at the Labour conference at the time, and that's what started this all. Kellie-Jay, it's coming at great personal cost to you, this. I mean, for your family, for your safety. I believe that you were personally threatened in New Zealand. People are trying to track you down. Why do you feel it's worth it?
Well, look, I've got a daughter. I've listened to mothers who've lost their kids to this cult, whose daughters now don't have a womb or don't have breasts, or they're never going to hear their daughter's voice again. And also, you know, once you know that this is happening, it's very difficult not to try and do something about it. Like, it's just completely immoral, and women throughout the Western world are suffering the same fate through this sort of quasi-religious cult.
Yeah, it has become that, hasn't it? Do you think the tide is turning now, though?
Well, what I've got a lot from New Zealand, and I think that probably is a pattern throughout the world, is someone said, I had no idea who you were, and then all of a sudden we didn't want you to come into the country. And so then I looked you up, and I'm a big fan. You're brilliant. Yes, I agree with you. And that's, you know, that's the purpose of my activism. It's not necessarily to convince the cult members to leave. It's to convince everybody else that there is something that they really should be looking at. So this is the thing that I want them to see.
And, I mean, there's a lot of gay and lesbian folk who feel completely let down by the LGBT madness, isn't it? I mean, this is not just about straight people. There's a real homophobia now connected to the extreme trans too.
Well, when you've got ACON, or I think they call them the Rainbow Brigade in New Zealand, or Stonewall, saying that it actually, what we used to say homosexuality is now same-gender attraction, you've totally erased homosexuality just in one fell swoop.
So what's the plan now? Because obviously you've got this spotlight now, you've got this megaphone. How do you turn this into real change? Because you're fighting against the mainstream media, you're fighting against the political establishment. Very soon you might be fighting against the British government too, given that if Labour gets into power, you'll have a Prime Minister who believes that a woman can have a penis.
Well, just after the coronation, I'll be launching my political party, where I will go and run against Keir Starmer. And we've got some big plans, but obviously there's loads of legal stuff to get done.
So you will run in his electorate?
Yeah. I will run against him, and I will force him to answer questions, because I used to be a lefty, so I felt really betrayed by Labour. Now I would never go. I would never go back. But I think everybody needs a voice in an election where you can vote for someone with conviction, who tells the truth, who is not afraid to say some things that may offend some people, because I think we need to get back to that. I think being offended is a natural part of life, and we should all do it a little bit more.
And is your political party going to be called Standing for Women?
No, it's going to be called the Party of Women.
I love it.
Thanks.
I love it. And presumably you're also reaching out to men, though.
Oh, absolutely, of course. I think, you know, everybody wants to live in a world where they can say the truth. I don't know what the impact for children who've been lied to repeatedly, I don't know what the impact is on them long term, but it has to stop.
OK, well, look, we're going to be following your journey, and I'm looking forward to this battle against Keir Starmer. That's going to make the next election interesting, whenever it is, and very glad that you safe and well back in the UK. That is the women's rights campaigner Kellie-Jay Keen, founder of Standing for Women.